Millennials are often portrayed as financially reckless as a generation, and that they put lavish avocado breakfasts and constant travel out of smart money moves. But that reputation, is it based in any fact at all?
Yeah, Alphabeta's new report shows millennials actually have less credit card debt and are better savers than older generations. For tonight's Taking Stock, we're joined by Warren Mundine, host of Mundine Means Business. And we've also got Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at the Motley Fool. Welcome to both of you. Scott, what do you reckon when we see this shift of thinking on millennials?
It doesn't suit the stereotype at all, does it?
No.
It's really disappointing. There's a very clear stereotype. If everyone stick to their roles, we'd be fine. You know, it's really interesting. So thinking about money and generations, we know that people's perceptions of things like the stock market, for example, are based on what the market was like when they turned 8 and 20. So if you think about the different generations as they've gone through, people who grew up in the 87 crash or the GFC have a very different money approach than people who were born before, during or after, because you get that sense of, okay, if the market's good, well, things are good. Investing is good, it's a good idea to do this sort of stuff. You have a very positive connotation. If you start with, and you grow up in adulthood with a sense of the market's bad, people lose money in the market, that's a bad idea, you tend to be less likely to invest yourself. Now, turn that to millennials, we know what they've been through, we know what their parents have been through, and they're in a situation now where they're better savers, yes, they've got less credit card debt, of course. They also have less assets at this point, or at least less debt, maybe in terms of total household debt, because they don't have those mortgages that their parents and other generations might have had. So there's a bit of push-pull on this one. On one hand, yes, they've got less personal debt. They are probably better savers. On the flip side, they don't have the opportunity to buy those cheaper houses that their parents did. So depending on what you're measuring, what part of your asset pie you're carving up, they look better on one hand. The flip side is they don't have that foot in the door, the step on the ladder, choose your analogy, that their parents and other generations have.
So the longer-term assets and potential
that's
there
the risk,
is
right? So
a very different pressure that they'll face.
You think about the gains. So if you bought a house of 30, 40, 50 grand 40 years ago, that's now worth $1 million. That's a whole different story. Now, if you haven't bought that house today at whatever the price is, now you won't get the same gains for a whole lot of reasons that we haven't got time to go into, but that change, that growth, they don't have the growth assets that other generations had. They've got the liquid assets, if you like. That's not going to get them far enough.
So with all that in mind, what do you think, Warren? Have they copped a bad rap?
It is 50. Look, I go along with you. It's 50-50, and it is a generational thing. Like, I look to my parents, and they come out of that depression. They went through the war, and they never, you know, there's no such thing as credit cards and all that type in their time, and so they were, you know, they didn't buy anything unless they saved for it, unless they had the money for it, and that's the way they operated, and so they had that frugal type approach to things. Now, of course, you know, I think they do, the millennials get a bit of a bad rap in the sense that they're living in a different time. There are credit cards, you know, it's very expensive now to buy houses. How do you get into the housing market and that? And also this idea that, you know, when I was first growing up, you know, I travel a lot now, but when I was first growing up, we didn't travel that much because of the expense and how. Well, travelling is not that expensive anymore.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to fly around. You don't even think about it sometimes. Like getting the taxi, just jumping in the off. Well, even the taxi when I was a young buck, we were very avoidance of taxis because we wanted, you know, we had to save our money in that, so we get the public transport and that, and unless you were forced to, which I never did, but, you know, go out and drinking and carrying on in nightclubs and bars and all that type of stuff. Of course, I was a good Catholic boy, and so you didn't have to. So it's the only time you're forced really to get into the taxi and do this. Today, everyone just does it. You get Uber, you get taxis, you do things. So you've got to put that in place. It is a different time. It's a different financial situation, but you're right in regard to assets. Like, you know, I look back and see my parents and myself. At 21, we had our first big mortgage, and we were into that mortgage process already. So that is a bit of a worry in a sense, but at the same time you've got to be realistic in the cost of housing now is just enormous. It's just amazing.
Warren, that is such a good segue into this next thing that we want to talk about, which is the cost of housing.
Which is the solution.
I planned that.
The solution to every millennial's problem, right here.
So this is a story that really took our interest today because it turns out a beautiful town in Sicily is selling homes for $1. That is $1 US, so I guess you'd say it's about $1.40 Australian, but still a bargain, right? As residents continue to move to urban areas, the township of Sambuca is another example of a town with rock-bottom real estate prices, hoping to attract people back to the country. Now, of course, with this sort of thing, there's always going to be a catch. Buyers have to commit to spending at least $20,000 on renovations within the first year of purchase, because as beautiful as this part of the world is, the houses are in a little bit of need of repair. Warren, what do you think? $1 for a house in Sicily?
I buy it just on the name Sambuca. I just go, I'm there, mate. I'm there. I'm just.
Well, it's cheaper than a shop
in fact, I'm going to call them after the show and start working. I don't think it's a bad bargain. Of course, it all depends on okay, how far you're from work and all that type of stuff. But you know, $1.40. You know, I'd probably try and get them down to $1.20. and
drive a bargain.
Drive a bargain. And of course, let's be honest, if you can $1.20, you can probably afford $20,000.
Yeah, that's right. You get a discount for a dozen, maybe.
I just think for millennials.
Oh, I didn't think. I'm slow tonight. A dozen. That sounds good. A dozen Sambucas. That sounds good.
That's right.
I think it's the perfect solution for $20,001 US, maybe granted. Millennials can get a house in Sicily, couple of $1,000s to travel to each year.
Yeah,
Once a year, you've got a holiday house.
What's the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's a simple one. Get your first foot on the property ladder. Happens to be in Sambuca in Sicily. It's look, you know, it's one of those stories. If you can afford to, hey, why not do it? You know, it's one of those. If you want to move to Italy or Sicily, great. If you want to go on holiday, if you can afford that, then great. Hey, why wouldn't you? On the flip side, you kind of figure 20 grand is not the end of the renovations, right? If they're making you spend 20 grand on it, there's every chance there's at least
the beginning.
You've got to figure so. So I can't imagine saying there's exactly 20 grand worth of renovations need to be done. Give us 20 grand, we'll call it quits. I figure once you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. It's not the first time. There's a lot of castles in Europe and the UK being sold for rock bottom prices for the same reason. There was just so much upkeep, so much you know, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. The purchase price is the cheapest part of the lot. Keeping this thing going for years is part of the problem. I dare say this might be one of those sort of scenarios. That being said, for $20,001, not a bad gamble.
I'd pay $2 if they gave the title the Duke of Sambuca.
I reckon they probably might. Warren, I reckon you probably get that one.
That'd be right on the business.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sounds good.
Italian Prince, I'm thinking.
I also think it's an interesting look. It's an interesting solution to this problem that a lot of places are having, which is people from the country are moving to the city. So you know, is it all about the price of being able to live where you are? I mean, all the opportunities being in the city. In Sicily, is it the same story, do you think, in Australia?
It gets down to the economics of it, right? It is really about if you can afford it, just do it. You know, it'd be a lot of fun. And of course, with every house, they tell you it's $20,000 repair and maintenance, and $100,000 later, you're still doing it. But you know, the real issue, now getting back to you know, rural and remote Australia and stuff like that, some councils have done this. You can, you know, spend $20,000 or $1 on a house, and even given houses away for free to come to those. But that sounds great and sounds like a bargain. But then you've got to think about, you know, is there work there? What's the education stuff for my kids? All these other things that then start coming into play.
There are towns in Italy too that have actually specifically targeted refugees coming to their country, actually offered them residency, offered them free housing, just to kickstart the local economy. If you can get a whole lot of refugee families into those particular towns, I can't think of the name of the town, but they've taken hundreds, I want to say even thousands of people, and the idea is get them to set up little artisan stores where they've got particular trades they've brought with them. And again, that whole idea of if you're going to live somewhere, hey, come and live here, you'll make a buck, you'll spend a buck, people will come, it kickstarts tourism. So there's some degree, just literally filling those houses, fills the streets, it fills the supermarkets, it fills the barber and the corner store, those things, even the grog shop with Sambuca. You know, it does kickstart the economy, and that's we know from Australia's own example, right? The whole populated parish thing might have been overdone, but the very reality of GDP growing by virtue of population growth, they're combating the reverse. They've got population decline and serious ones. They're trying to fill things back up.
Very interesting. We've made that into a very serious and interesting topic. I was expecting to talk about $1.
Oh, well, no. Well, I'm going back to the. I'm going to go back to the Duke.
It started with him. Exactly.
Just to stop us from being serious.
Warren's serious about the Dukedom here.
He actually is serious about that. Yeah.
And if you're out there, Sicily, I'm very. You know, I'll put $2 in. I'll even pay $2.
And actually, he owns a sparky business, Warren. So he's going to be a useful man about town. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Okay. Another story that we saw today was that Donald Trump has finally given a reason as to why his ties are so long. So drum roll, what is the reason? He says that they slenderize him, which I'm not sure was a word until he said that there. Now, tailors, of course, were quick to take to social media to say that, well, actually, that practice makes men look shorter. But there you go, we've got an answer now. He does tend to have quite long ties, but it's all, he's got a theory for it. He's got a theory for everything. Scott, what did you think?
Out of the deal, out of the tie, I don't know what's going on here. slenderised. The whole, what do you say? You know,
What do you say?
This is very much the story. I don't think anyone looking at Donald Trump really thinks that the tie makes him look. No one's looking at Donald Trump and going, I'm looking past the tie. I'm thinking you look really slender. Look at the tie and you think, what on earth is going on with the tie?
Yeah.
You don't even get past that, right? If it was literally even possibly true, even though the tailors say it's not. I just don't know. Have you ever looked at a photo of Donald Trump and gone, hey, cool tie, you're looking slim?
Well, actually, the photos we were looking at today are of when he actually does them so long, the bit behind doesn't fit into the little tabs. So when he kind of gets up, it's a windy day, they fly over his shoulder and there's taping
That's
the
right,
two
there
bits
is.
together.
Yeah.
He tapes them with little bits of masking tape. So, yeah. It's a new... I can't see the trend taking off.
I never thought about his ties, honestly, and maybe I'm a bit slow, until this comment come up about making him slim, and you're right. I've never looked at him and went, wow, he's just so slim with that tie. You know, it's just bizarre, but
It is.
Look, kiddies, please go to bed. I have this thing about ties which point down, and a woman pointed out to me, said, why have you got neckties that point down to your certain anatomy? And I went, I never thought about that either.
Well, I just think no one wears ties anymore. He's one of the few world leaders that still wears ties.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm glad we're in the world leadership now.
Yeah.
Exactly. We haven't got time for that whole rant, but seriously, what is going on these days? People still want to wear tie? I don't. I genuinely. I get there's a generational thing that for some people. I've been criticised in the past for saying, well, look, you're not very serious because you're not turning up with a tie. How am I supposed to take you seriously? It's like, well, if you're going to take me seriously talking rubbish with a tie, or talking seriously without a tie, if that's the defining difference, then hey, there's bigger issues, right? So I think maybe I'm saying that because I'm not wearing a tie, but I just figured there's got to be better ways. There's got to be bigger things.
I got to tell you this now: if you're going to visit the Duke of Sambuca, you're going to be
wearing a tie.
Otherwise, they're going to execute you.
Tell you what the trouble is. I was going to go until that point.
I just thought, like, obviously, when we're talking about Donald Trump, there are other things to notice first.
That's also true, right?
I mean, it just goes to show, if your tie's a little bit long, people are going to notice. Like, it just makes you realise, if you're in a position where people are looking at you all the time, they're going to pick you apart. They're going to know. You know
what I say? I don't think about the slim stuff or the other stuff. I actually think about, you look like a bit of a dickhead with a tie hanging down.
Yes.
Well, people worry that women get judged for what they wear, but I think we certainly do it with Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Although I do think to some degree, everyone else in the world wears their tie shorter than that. And Trump, God love him, has decided that he's got the answer that no one else is quite cottoned onto just yet. He's going to wear his tie long because he's got the solution. And when the rest of the world catches on, finally they'll realise it too. At some point, it's like that thing where you think everyone else is crazy. If everyone else is crazy, then there's every good chance you're probably the one who's a little bit off the planet rather than everybody else.
I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to stand in front of the mirror and I'm going to turn to the wife and I'm going to go, do I look slim in this tie?
That's right.
You've got to say slenderize. Slenderize me.
That's a registered trademark now. You can't go throwing that around.
For your next year's Macquarie Dictionary, that one.
There's a new hat slogan coming very soon.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Scott Phillips and the Duke of Sambuca, Warren Mundine. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Well,